organized this massive protest saying why
That was for the very first Himalayan?
first Himalayan ran into political issues. What was the logo? I don't know if you know. Do you know what was the logo of the Great
No, I
Desert
do not.
Himalaya?
No. Wait, 100 octane was available back then?
He made sure during the rally was run that you would
In
get
the 80s.
80s. He made sure.
But in 1977, a Porsche 911 did Delhi to Bombay in 11 hours.
In the night.
In the night.
In the night.
Welcome to the Evo India podcast. And on this week's episode, it's my absolute privilege and honor to have Bob Rupani as our guest in the studio. Bob, welcome to the Evo India podcast.
Thank you, my sideways friend. And you've put me in a racing seat. Where are the harness here?
The harnesses are in such a way that you can't really get out, so you don't need the harness.
No, pleasure is mine to be here.
So to introduce Bob, Bob has been a veteran automotive journalist and a pioneering automotive journalist. We were just talking, and your first road test of the Tata 207 was in 1987?
87, some 20 pages plus.
20 page. I was still in short pants in school back then. And my memory of Bob goes back to when I was starting off as an automotive journalist at Overdrive. And the very first travel story that I did, that time Adil Jal Darukhanawala, he was the editor of Overdrive, and he told, Sirish, go to Bob and ask him, and ask Bob, go Bob. So I went to Bob and asked him that, okay, Bob, I need to do this travel story with the 4x4 Tata Safari, and where should we go? And Bob was the one who directed us to the Run of Kutch. And I think that was one of the first stories that we had actually done. Now everybody goes to the Run of Kutch and everything.
I think story-wise, you were the first guy to do a story of driving in the run. I had been driving in the run since 80s and, so passionate, and that is ideal driving terrain. But now, of course, everyone knows it. But you're the guy who actually put it out in media space.
So I did that first story in the Run of Kutch, all thanks to Bob, because he introduced me to Mujahid of Run Riders, who took us into the run. And then from there, we went to the Gondal Palace. You again introduced us to them, and we did this whole story on their classic cars. And we did that whole loop over there. We did a couple of stories in the Northeast, in Pench, in Kana, and all was thanks to Bob's contacts. Even today, I have this running joke that if you go to the forest, you see a tiger, and the tiger will tell you, Bob was here last week. So, Bob, in terms of travel,
It's actually, Sirish, a lot of people look at it as travel, but it's the pleasure of driving. It's the thrill of driving. It's because one enjoys to drive. And what is a car if it doesn't take you to beautiful places? Yeah. So that's what I enjoy doing rather than just driving a car in and around a city. You take it, understand the car, get to know it. If you're testing or reviewing it, do it while you're going to some pretty place, no?
Awesome. Also, Bob has done a lot of motorsport, a lot of classic car rallies, and that's actually the focus of this episode of the Evo India podcast, the highs and lows of Indian motorsport. Now, I've done my fair share of rallying, but that's been in the more modern era. The Himalayan rallies, all of those I used to read in magazines that you probably edited. Back then, you had rallies on the cover page of the magazine. Today, obviously, our magazines don't have motorsport on the cover page. But that's what really got us into motorsport. And all the veteran journalists that I know of, all have had their roots in motorsport. And that gives you a solid grounding in being able to evaluate cars, motorcycles, vehicles, because what motorsport teaches you in terms of driving dynamics, in terms of the technical side of things, I don't think you can learn it anywhere else.
It's actually, you've said it so correctly. It's the best training ground. Because one, you very quickly understand the limitations of a production vehicle. Two, you then see some of the best minds and tuners working to improve that vehicle. And then how are you doing it? So you begin to understand not just the behavior of a vehicle in its standard form, but how its performance levels can be raised. What can be done to improve it. And then when you go and sit in a production vehicle that you have to review, you instantly get the feel that, the steering's not right, this is not in the right place, this is not doing what it should, right? And it tells you so much because, I think we've been fortunate that, I always say my 40 years in journalism, I haven't done anything else, is that I have not worked a single day in my life. I would have, in fact, paid to do what I do. And that's all because of this passion for motorsport.
Yeah. So, Bob, you've been doing this for far longer than I've even been reading automotive magazines. Let's talk through the highs and lows of Indian motorsport. In my mind, the Himalayan Rally used to be a really, really big deal. I believe it was also like a contender round for the WRC. You've been involved in the Himalayan Rally right since day one.
Day one.
How did it come about?
Okay, now that's very interesting that you say that. And I'm here because of motorsport. How did that happen? So I went to the St. Xavier's High School in Bombay, which was less than a kilometer away from the Liberty Theatre, which was the home and base of Nazir Hoosein, the founder of the Himalayan Rally. So in 1977, the London to Sydney marathon was passing through India. And they were going, Bombay was one of the big halting points, and from where the cars would get shipped to Australia. But it was the end of the major overland leg from London to Bombay, right? In my school, St. Xavier's, one day I see a notice on the notice board saying that they want volunteers to welcome the London to Sydney Marathon Rally, students to volunteer. And I said, of course I'm going to volunteer. And the address there was the Liberty Cinema and all that. And I went there in my school uniform. And that was the first time I met Nazir Hoosein. And he said, you're on, please be there. You're going to give roses and, flowers and bouquets and whatever to all the participants. My brother, late brother, Gul, was himself a very keen automotive and motorsport enthusiast. And he got more excited than me. And he said, no, you must know all about this. So we'll go and buy all the magazines and whatever. So he sourced lots of magazines, looked around, and we found one that had an entire write-up on the London to Sydney and which were the participants, which were the cars. And I read up all on it. And then, of course, there is another story about how the first car was expected like at 4:30 or 5 in the evening. And the first one arrived at 11 in the morning with that Polish driver, Zasada, doing, Delhi to Bombay.
Porsche 911, right?
911 in some 11 hours is what he did, all right? And so that's another story for another day, how I was rushed out of school and, was one of the first guys to land up there even before the marshal's post had been put up.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's an actually really cool story. He was driving from Delhi to Bombay.
Yes.
What was the time that they expected him to finish?
So like I'm saying, so the first car that they were expecting was around 4 or 5 in the evening. Earliest.
What was the time from Delhi to Bombay? Means how many hours that was?
So if you look at it, 11 hours is when he came in they started around midnight from Delhi. So 11 a.m. around he came to Bombay. So we add 5 hours to that.
So basically he did Delhi to Bombay in 1977 in 11 hours.
Absolutely. And I heard him come around that Chopati Babulnath bend when he took, you could hear him at Nariman Point. That's, flat 6 on song. I mean, that was something else. The sound was bouncing off all these Art Deco buildings on Marine Drive. Yeah.
Even today, even when the Delhi-Bombay Expressway gets done, that's not something you could do. But in 1977, a Porsche 911 did Delhi to Bombay in 11 hours.
In the night.
And in those days, rallies did not mean that the roads were closed off.
No, absolutely not. And the highway was a single lane, half of it broken in so many places.
Sorry for the interruption, Bob. So now continue with the London Sydney Marathon. So Nazir pulled you out of school.
So school and all that. And like I said, the first car was arriving well before, and I think they got alerted 2-3 hours before. And then, those days there were no mobile phones, so calls went to my house and landline, and they got hold of my brother who came rushing to pick me up from school. Middle of class, I was pulled out. In fact, I think I was possibly the only student in Bombay who'd volunteered for this. So even my school vice principal and all were excited, and they said, go. And, went to Marine Drive. And even before the first control had been set up and everything, we were there. And then I heard, like I said, this Jasara coming down. By then the other people had gathered, the officials were coming in, banners were everything, time control being put up. And he came flying down, and then soon after, I think there was a gap of 15-20 minutes, the second, third, fourth car started coming. And since I knew, and I was made to stand right where there was someone welcoming on the mic and all, and I kept saying which car it was, and then they started putting the mic to me and saying, tell us what this is, and I said, that's a Mercedes 280, and that is this, and that's a Citroën, and that's, And everyone was like, and later on, after that, there was a great, it was an incredible experience to be, Sirish. Someone like you would have gone mad in Bombay that night. I mean, you had the Fiat 131s being serviced at the Bombay Cycle Workshop at Churchgate. Full rally specs. Then these are all work teams. Mercedes, all the Mercs being serviced at the United Motors workshop, which is used to be at Hughes Road. Okay, that was Tata collaboration. You had all these 280Es being stripped, suspensions replaced, the works. All right. Then you had, I remember at the Kundanmal pump, Ramesh Kundanmal himself a rallyist, and his sons now restoring cars and all that. So every workshop in Bombay. And they had done such a good job that all the welders, everyone was kept up all through the night. They had been informed that this rally is going to come. People will require all sorts of things. And we were just going from one place to another to see the cars. And you're sitting in these seats. I remember that's the first time I saw Paddy Hopcup seats. And they were fitted in a car that Paddy Hopcup was driving. You had all the legends, yeah. You had, Andrew Covens and all these.
Andrew Coven's Mercedes 280E, which was on the London-Sydney Marathon, that's there at the Mercedes-Benz Museum.
I took a picture of myself with that when we'd got to that museum. That very same car I had seen coming into Bombay. And then, of course, many years later, like you say, in the Mercedes Museum, it's on that banking.
Yes.
They've kept it there.
Yes.
I have a picture of myself there standing with it. So, to keep it short, this is not about me. So, but this is how I got into the sport. And after that, lots of the people noticed that here is a youngster who's, so into it and knew the cars and drivers possibly better than them, because being in school, I'd done my homework and come. And then they said, you must come for more of the events and stuff like that. And next thing I know is 1980, the Himalayan Rally is being flagged off from the CCI, the Cricket Club of India, inside. And there I was standing next to the podium, again with Nazir, thanks to him. And after that he involved me, whether it was looking after the media, whether it was going on certain of the route surveys, all sorts of things.
So how did the Himalayan Rally come about?
Now, that's a very interesting thing. In my opinion, in conversations with Nazir, I think the seed was sown during the London to Sydney Marathon. It ran through India with all the participants saying the India leg. Even today, if you look at all the old media reports, you pull stuff, they will say they never had a welcome like they had in India. All right, there are some YouTube videos, black and whites, if you see. Crowds lining both sides of the streets and all that. I think that triggered it off, that these guys have loved driving through India. They've loved the challenges. They've loved the enthusiasm of the crowd. And we are known for our hospitality. So that was appreciated. I think that's where it triggered the thought. And then Nazir told me very clearly, he went to the Safari Rally in Kenya to check how the Kenyans were running the Safari Rally. And then along with them, when he floated the idea, they loved the idea and said, you have the Himalayas in India. No other country in the world has these mountains. Do a rally there, and we'll send our boys from Kenya to participate. And that's how the Himalayan was actually born. In fact, initial lot of marshals also came from there. There were a lot of involvement from the Kenyans who were organizing the safari, which was already a very world-renowned, the toughest rally in the world, it was known as at that time. And that's why in the initial lot, you even had Shekhar Mehta driving 5 times, winner of the safari. He came to the Himalayan. You had Opel's works team. You had Toyota works teams. You had Nissan works teams. I don't think we in India had ever seen that kind of lineup. The kind of participation. Joginder Singh was to drive. Last minute something happened and he couldn't drive. Again, 3 times winner of the Safari. All the big names. There was this lady, Marion Hoffner, who finished second. She was doing a show for the German television or French television, I believe. She had a camera mounted, on in front of the A-pillars, 2 cameras mounted, and that
in
kind
the pre-GoPro days.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it was. The Himalayan had, you couldn't have asked for a better start off for an event. it attracted huge number of participants from all over the world. If I'm not mistaken, 35 to 40 cars came from outside India to participate.
And how many cars from India?
And you had about 60 cars from India. There was a grid starting of about 100 cars. Right?
And the Indian cars would have been what? Ambassadors, Padminis?
You had ambassadors, Padmini, Jongas. Then there were some very enterprising people. If I'm not mistaken, Vicky Chandok managed to get a Ford Escort. There were some Indians who managed to get cars from outside, lease them or whatever, or bring them, and some, collaborations with the navigator being someone who brought the car and an Indian driver. But you had everything from Triumph Heralds to ambassadors that were extensively modified, to Premier Padmanis, to Mahindras and Jongas. This was the field of vehicles. And of course, 2 years it ran, which starts from Bombay. But then, I'll go back a little. So the unfortunate thing is that though we had all the participation in place, though you had all the support from, the various automotive companies, the biggest manufacturers, India was nowhere on the map for any of them at that time. They participated. They came to India. Unfortunately, our politics interfered there also. And you had George Fernandes, who organized this massive protest saying why...
That was for the very first Himalayan?
First Himalayan ran into political issues. And after that, it was plagued with this entire history. I don't know if Nazir broke a coconut or what and didn't break it at the start of this event. This event was born with bad luck.
Like what?
With this political opposition from day one. So George Fernandes and his, political workers opposing it, saying foreign exchanges of that we, fuel is being burned. We are importing oil and you're burning it in these cars. This is the sport for rich, and not even realizing that the kind of global mileage you would get would, the tourism that would come in and the kind of money these guys were spending to ship their cars, the parts, coming and staying in India, spending money here, doing all that. No one even noticed all that. And there were stones thrown at the bloody cars and it ran into problems. And the event ran. Nazir was, I must say, hats off to him, a very determined man. In the face of all the opposition, he ran the event. They got the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi, to the prize distribution, who apologized. She apologized and she said, next time I promise you there'll be no stones, there'll be roses all the way. But a certain amount of damage had been done. It took a few years of rebuilding, but it happened. The Indian participation just grew and grew. We've seen so many champions cut their teeth on the Himalayan. Hari Singh, Nikhil Tanejas. Of course, the Farhad Bhatinas were there. And there were lots of people. Indians came in bigger and bigger numbers from all parts of the country. Indian Army participation, Indian Air Force participation, Indian Navy official teams. All our three defense forces came with teams of 5. At least you would have a fleet of 15 to 20 Indian Armed Forces vehicles. Sekho and Chauhan. All these names came in. You saw a different level of Indian motorsport happen. And then, of course, internationally, fortunately, it came back. The first one, inaugural one, was won by Shekhar Mehta. It attracted more Kenyans. The Kenyan support remained. Jayan Shah came, Ramesh Khoda came. Quite a lot of, you had 8-10 cars come from, Kenya. Then the big names, let me read some if I'm forgetting. Okay. So in the first one, you had Shekhar Mehta, Akim Wambold, Marion Hofner, all the works teams like I mentioned. Then over the years, you had, like I again mentioned, Jayan Shah, Ramesh Khoda from Kenya, who have done well in the safari. Jayan Shah, I think, has won the Himalayan the maximum number of times. He's unfortunately no more. But the other big names, again, Sinazuka, who went on to win the Paris-Dakar and all that. He came for the Himalayan. I remember talking to him and he said, this is unbelievable. Mitsubishi, when Shinazuka won, ran an ad campaign, global ad campaign, saying, I think they had this thing of the Himalayas and saying winners on the roof of the world.
And his famous line about not needing seat belts but a parachute.
Yes.
What was the line?
Yes, he did say that because the heights were at places you were going, Jalori Pass and all, 16,000 feet. And he said, here I you don't really actually need a seatbelt, but I'd be more comfortable with a parachute if we, ended up going off. But that was, then you had, from Australia, you had Ross Dunkerton, Doug Stewart. So there was a lot of good Australian participation. You had Fleury, Rod Millen, I mean, all the way from the United States. And this guy, made a name doing the Pikes Peak and all that, with all those heavily modified Mazdas and things like that. Rod Millen came and drove in India in a Mazda. You had Per Eklund, who was then doing WRC and was rated in the top 6 drivers in WRC. Per Eklund came to India, and I must say, the guy who Himalayan Rally gave birth to an international form of rallying, which is thriving today, and no one knows that it was thanks to the Himalayan, Philip Young. Philip Young participated in the first Himalayan Rally in a Morris Minor.
Okay.
Which was, he had taken on loan from the Archbishop of Canterbury, modified it, came to India, did the Himalayan, finished 10th overall. There's a very famous photo, if you search, of him. His Morris Minor being carried across a stream by our Indian laborers on bamboo sticks.
Really? Okay.
All right. That's a very famous photograph. I remember, I have a book Nazir also gave me on the victory of that Morris Minor, and the cover shot is that.
So, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll have all these images over here. We'll get this source from Bob and we'll put up all these images.
Philip Young, and I was fortunate, I got to know him. The second Himalayan, he came in an Austin Healey 3000. And the scrutiny was happening for people, Bombayites, at Cuff Parade, at that big BST depot at the end of Cuff Parade, just before Navy Nagar starts. That was where the scrutiny was happening. And I was there. And I remember going gaga over this car. And Philip Young, I mean, God bless him, asked me if I wanted to go for a drive with him. And he took me for a drive, and I took him all around Marine Drive and up Malabar Hill. He didn't know those roads, and he took me around. Philip Young was a classic car lover. Again, unfortunately, he's no more. He passed away a few years back. But he made the theme. After participating in India in various cars like this, he came some years later, he drove a Rover also. He came, every time he came in a different classic car. But he then went on to found the global classic car marathon endurance events, including reviving the Peking to Paris event. That was Philip Young. He is the founder of all those events. And much later, I think 97 or 98, he came to India with the Peking to Paris rally also. And again, I was fortunate, we'd been in touch before. I met him right at the Nepal border. But that idea of Philip Young, that classic car marathon rallies can be done, I think was born at the Himalayan with him participating. So that, and today it's a huge global movement. So you had people like Philip Young coming. Cars, as we mentioned, Jonga to Dolphin. Then you had the Nissan 240 RS to Boris Minors. And you had all the top cars participating in WRC at that time. The Opel Asconas, Mitsubishi Galants, Toyota Celicas. I've seen a Ford RS 200 in the Himalayan. Fiat 131s, of course, Nissan 240 RS, Ford Escorts, Lancia, Audi Quattros. They had come for the Himalayan Rally. So these kind of cars coming to our country, many of them works teams, mechanics, the whole way of working on cars, us watching. We are very fast learners. All our boys and everyone seeing what these foreigners are doing, how they, the cars are designed with sub-assemblies. You can drop an entire suspension in 5 minutes and put in another this thing. We learned. We started doing things also, and a lot of course, Indian ingenuity is everywhere. So these guys came with tools and spares that we had never seen. And before they left the country, we would buy these off them. So you got all the state-of-the-art tools. You got, I remember personally requesting some of them and buying, all the Hella 2000s and Seaway Oscars and things like that. Then the rallies were done and they're taking them back home. And we would, get the benefit of using them for our local motorsport. So the Himalayan Rally, I will go further. Some people may not like it. Nazir was, how do I say? In my view, a man who's done a hell of a lot of motorsport. But certain people have different views about him. But there's no denying that for the 80s, 90s to 2000s and even today, some people there who are running our motorsport are people who Nazir picked to run the Himalayan. It was the best training ground. Now just imagine, you have no cell phones. You have a landline network that you had to, if you booked a lightning call, you possibly got through in 24 hours. Your regular call, there was no STD in India.
Trunk calls.
They were trunk calls. It took you 2 days to connect. You had to fix a time and say, I want to talk to Sirish on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Then possibly if you got connected, you're very lucky. Right? And 3 minutes cost a fortune to talk on that. Nazir, despite all that, set up controls in the middle of nowhere. I remember outside Corbett Park, there was a control. I met those guys and they said, for 3 days we had no communication. The last telegram that came told us, come and stand here at this time, from this time to this time, note all cars going and the timings. And we had been sent all these sheets and registered AD posts and all that. Now imagine the logistical exercise. The ham radio networks that Nazir must have helped push, or getting all the ham radio guys involved, where to set up, the controls, how to have communications and all that. There was a logistical marvel what he did. And the people who worked with him. I mean, I was once year asked to do a media guide. So, Sirish, you got to hear this. We have attended 500 plus, maybe 1,000 automotive events, car launches, car drives, media drives. The brief I was given was, you will even put down the position of the sun at the time of the event will go through that area. And where, on what corners the car will slide, where it will get airborne, where you're going to see a dust trail. Your photo guide had to have details like that. And that was Nazir Hoosein. I have this huge respect for him because he taught me all these things. Saying, do a photo guide, give it to the guy who's coming to a country for the first time, and let him select. I want to go to this stage, I want to go here, this is where I'll get this action, this is where I'll get this. This is what the light will be. Can you imagine? Have you attended? Tell me which event you've attended where you've got this kind of media photo guide.
No chance, yeah.
So that is, so behind the scenes also, there was so much happening. But, like I said, it didn't get off to a good start. Nazir didn't break a coconut or whatever. He had, initial years, all the socialists opposing George.
How many years did it run?
10 years. 1980 to 1990.
And all the 10 years we had international participation?
All the 10 years. Towards the end, it started dwindling a bit.
Okay.
Especially after we had the agitation in Uttar Pradesh. See, what I remember talking to a few of the political workers. There was a new agitation that started. They wanted a separate hill state of Uttarakhand. They said, no media comes to listen to us. No one, we have the need of, we are part of Uttar Pradesh, which is India's biggest state territory-wise, and the people in the mountains are neglected. So we need a separate state. I'm not going into the politics of it. They may have had their justifications or not justified, but they wanted their voices heard. And they said, when you guys come with this, as they used to say, car race. I remember one guy telling me beautifully, haar jeet ke liye aate hain.
Haar jeet ke liye.
Haar jeet ke liye aate hain aap. Victory and loss aate hain aap. He said, along with you comes this huge media contingent. So many cameras, TV. Doordarshan used to run a daily, report on it and all that. Where would they get a captive media audience like that? So agitate in front of them, sleep in front of the controls, don't let the cars start, banners. Some then got aggressive, threw stones, all that. So it became a platform for people to, broadcast their political grievances. So the Himalayan became a victim of that too.
So the Himalayan was always planned as a contender round for the World Rally Championship.
From day one, I think Nazir wanted
it never happened.
It never happened. I remember, I'm not sure exactly which year, but you had FIA officials coming also to as observers. And But it never happened due to all this political unrest. And then we had misfortune. It was an event plagued with misfortune. You had Mrs. Gandhi's assassination happening while the event was running. Yeah, and then the subsequent riots and all that. Army had to be called in. So that now such unfortunate incidents. The Himalayan faced this through its 10-year period. And I think then towards the end somewhere, Nazir also, I think, lost the drive to keep fighting the, instead of running the event, I think he was fighting more fires outside, trying to ensure that the event just went through.
The Great Desert Himalayan, was that an evolution of the Himalayan Rally, or did it run parallel with the Himalayan?
Now, this is again a very, very, I love it that you're asking this, because this again was a brainchild of Nazir. He by then was traveling to, when you start running an international level event in your country, you have international level participation. Nazir was traveling all over the world to see how WRC events were being done, picking up the best practices from them, establishing the standard operating procedures for our event here. He was a very smart man, learning everything from everywhere, talking to people, picking up things. And that's when he realized that the Paris-Dakar was a future kind of event, a raid, a long marathon raid. And he, having spent so much time on the Himalayan, said, why can't we be one country that does a WRC kind of event and also do a raid kind of event? We have the terrain for it. Yeah, we have deserts at sea level, the Thar Desert. And we have the highest deserts in the world in Ladakh. Why not do something where you take on the challenge of these deserts and this kind of terrain? And that's how the Great Desert Himalaya was born. And I tell you, why am I a fan of him? You know how much I love wildlife? What was the logo? I don't know if you know. Do you know what was the logo of the Great Desert Himalaya?
No. What was it?
Snow leopard.
Okay.
The head of a snow leopard. Today, tourism, wildlife tourism in Ladakh is based on snow leopards. And those days, I don't think many Indians knew what a snow leopard was.
Right? We're talking about 88, 89.
88 was the Great Desert Himalaya, the first one. And that's why, since he wanted it to be a rival to the Paris-Dakar, he allowed trucks also, LCVs, yeah, and cars and motorcycles. The whole works, the whole gambit was there.
So this ran what time? Which month?
If I'm not mistaken, it was September, October, just after all the passes had opened up.
Okay. No, officially shut. So then you could run them.
September, just as they were closing.
As officially shut.
Yeah.
And when was the Himalayan? What time period?
The Himalayan was much before. The Himalayan would happen in... The period varied, but it happened in October, November.
Okay.
Just the Diwali, Dasera after that kind of thing.
So the GDH and the Himalayan ran at the same... Was there a year where both the events ran?
88, both ran.
Okay, both ran.
Both ran.
Yeah. So what was unique about the GDH?
The GDH was, again, if you see the people today, Ladakh is the must-visit destination for most, enthusiasts, motoring or riding enthusiasts. And the Indian Army has done some tremendous work there, and we have, what roads and some of the best paved roads in our country, fastest roads in the mountains, great connectivity. Back then, it was not like that. Back then, even the government policy was that, since these are all border areas, we should build no infrastructure in case there is a conflict. You shouldn't have the enemy shouldn't be able to come in very quickly. All right. So, thanks to that, we had neglected that part of it. But it works damn well for motorsport. I mean, if you see some of the old footage, again, it's there on YouTube. You'll find the vehicles plowing through such fine, sand at 15,000, 16,000 feet. It's like powder. It's all talcum powder sand going through. It's unbelievable because there was nothing that was paved up there. And a lot of the navigation was done by a compass and things like that. So the challenges were huge.
Mm.
You had the challenge of the weather, the challenge of the heights, and then the challenge of, finding your own path and no route literally.
Just to take a step back, the Himalayan did not go to Ladakh.
No.
So, what was the route of the Himalayan? Because we think that the Raid to Himalaya is the modern day reincarnation of the Himalayan, but it's the reincarnation of the GDH, right?
Absolutely.
And that nobody talks about. So, where
Yes.
did the Himalayan go through?
So the Himalayan basically ran in Himachal and what is now Uttarakhand. So that would be the
So, the foothills of the Himalayas.
foothills. It was the Shivaliks mainly. And so you had, Nainital would be a very, very prominent overnight halt. And if you see that police ground in Nainital, that used to be the park for me. Huge park for me, and whole night there would be band, baja, and all the people, the big party in Nainital. Mussoorie, all right. And then you went to all the Ranikhet, Almoras, Corbett. The Corbett, of course, it's a tiger reserve now. At that time, it was a wildlife sanctuary. So in the buffer area on the outside, and even now that road that skirts Corbett and goes up to Lansdowne, goes up via that Kalagad Dam, goes up to Ranikhet and all that. All in that Corbett region. So the Himalayan was run Noida. I mean, today what Noida is and Greater Noida is, if you see that canal, there used to be the most deadly stages were the canal stages.
Okay.
You had these canals and these little dirt tracks alongside, bumpy dirt tracks, and then 90-degree turns. So there was a canal stage. You started from Delhi. Yeah, you started from that stadium. I forget that the big cricket stadium. You started from there, and in less than 20 kilometers, you had to the canal stage.
Okay.
And you had cars flip over and all that because it was bloody fast, narrow, and then you had all these bends in dirt and the canal alongside. There was no Noida at that time.
So, also another challenge for organizing a rally like this is population, right? And the roads getting made, it being impossible to shut down roads for rallying, right?
Now, here is where I would tell you is, you remember I told you about Nazir putting up this thing in my school and saying students wanted to volunteer for the London to Sydney.
Yeah.
Nazir had this beautiful thing of involving local communities. During the Himalayan, schools were given holidays. All right, school students came along with the teachers to line the routes in disciplined manner, waving at all the cars. It was a great outing and picnic for the children. Parents were overjoyed. I'm telling you, Sirish, the pumps, if you saw fuel stations, he would tie up with Indian Oil or whoever and say, this is to make sure you got the best quality fuel. 100 octane was available. So you had...
Wait, 100 octane was available back then?
He made sure during the rally was run that you would
In
get...
the 80s?
80s. He made sure with a tie-up with the oil companies, and then you had a list of official fuel stations. And they were not just fuel stations. They would be decorated. You took pride. If Sirish Chandran owned a gas station, he wanted the Himalayan to come to his station to fill up. You decorated it with shamianas. You had jalebis being fried, samosas in the middle of the night. Whoever came, tea being served free, locals there, bands playing. It used to be tamasha, yaar. It was fun. The whole local population was involved in it.
This is it's actually like a festival.
It was a festival. Again, search for the photos. You'll see. I have one. Remind me. I have one Himalayan rally photograph with all these school children, both sides of the road, waving away and the cars going through.
Unreal.
Okay. It was that kind of festive thing. The mountains waited for the Himalayan to come to them. The gas stations waited that you would come. I would remember going into some place or something, tea being thrust in your hand first, snacks, you would get this fellow coming and giving you hot samosas.
Then what happened?
So, politics.
And this is not motorsport politics, but this is national level government politics.
Absolutely. That I must say, it shows one thing, that we could leave our internal politics aside during the Himalayan. You had everyone from South India to North India to Central India to Western India to Eastern India coming together proudly. All the various clubs would send their people. Everyone would come together to run the Himalayan.
When was the last GDH?
89, I think.
89.
2 years it ran, 88, 89.
And after that, that was it.
That was it. Now that again, Politics, unfortunate. That's when the Kashmir conflict started happening. All right. And then the area was completely out of bounds. So both these events had their, I would say, the stars weren't aligned correctly. Something or the other went wrong.
So now for this half of the podcast, we've talked about rallying. The Himalayan obviously being the most important. We obviously had the National Rally Championship, but I think there'll be too much to talk about all of that. Let's focus a little bit on racing. We had Sholavaram, which was this British era airstrip, which was then converted to host races like in other places. So we had Juhu hosting races, the Juhu runway.
I've driven on Juhu, there were three times.
The Pune airport, Lohegao, that
Absolutely.
also had races. Barakpur in Calcutta.
Yes.
You know, so all these runways were used for races, but obviously as had more air traffic and all that, you couldn't use runways except for Sholavaram. Sholavaram continued longer than the other runways. Those times, I've heard stories. I'm too young to have seen it actually, but used to have packed grandstands, plus people actually paying to sit in those grandstands, not Fukatka sitting over there.
And these were temporary grandstands built for the Sholavaram weekend of racing. 25, 30,000 people. Again, entire route from Madras, it was then, to Sholavaram, lined with people to watch the cars going up and down. Marina Beach. For a week, 10 days, and for locals maybe even earlier, was a testing grounds in the night. People came to jet their vehicles. People came to tune and test this thing. That entire stretch of Marina Beach in the night with cops standing and you're doing acceleration runs. See, it tells you that given the right kind of atmosphere, we Indians love motorsport. Right? You were allowed at that time to get in. If Sirish was rallying or racing, you could go up and talk to Sirish and say, hey, what you got under your bonnet here? Can I also do this in my car? And, have friendly, nice conversations. Sholavaram, the unique thing to me was you had everything from mopeds, scooters, motorcycles. Then you had our regular cars, whether they were the Heralds, did a lot of Sholavaram racing, the Fiats, ambassadors. I mean, Niaz Ali built his reputation on driving a bloody ambassador around Sholavaram. All right, crazily driving it around the Sholavaram. I mean, his car had so much body lean that the edges of the fenders would be worn off. There were sparks flying. Yeah. You see sparks flying in Formula 1, we had sparks flying with ambassadors. Yeah. All right. So then you had the crowd participation. Crowd knew who was who. They knew who came from Bombay and what car he was driving and what his performance was likely to be like. Then we had very innovative rules that allowed you to build specials. You could, the Maharaj Kumar of Gondal had a Jaguar special. A Jaguar engine pulled out, frame made. And a single-seater racing car made out of it. You had so many specials made.
You had that Formula Indian or something.
Then you had a Formula India category.
With Adi
Lovely
Malgam
category.
Yeah.
You had Adi Malgam and everyone, Kamlesh Patel and Sunil Shanbags and Nazir Hooseins and Darayas Bhatenas and all everyone, lots of cars. The only thing there was that the engine and gearbox had to be from an Indian sourced vehicle. And what innovations, what body styles. People used to look at cars racing at Lamau and make those cars here. But great innovation. So Sholavaram again was, I would say, a high of Indian motorsport. The level of tuning. I mean, I yet remember you had in the Premier, with the Fiat category, generally all categories. You had one category that was later on made into Group N. I think it was called then there was a N plus, which was A1A. Group A and A1A. And then there was A2, which was the completely you could use foreign parts and all that. But the A1A category was the one where you had the maximum competition. Or
Which is that Vijay Mallya's Black Beauty. The
no, that is
Padmini-
A2.
A2,
The
okay.
Black Beauty is A2.
Okay.
That you were allowed to use foreign make carburetors, do a lot more modifications, change the pistons, change your gear ratios, all that. That was A2. That was the Group 2 it was called. Or there extensive modification. But the A1A was where you used Indian made carburetors, certain size of pistons only you were allowed to go from I think 40 to 60 oversize and things like that. Gearbox had to be basically stock, no gear ratios changed. I think only final drive. I'm not sure. So many years gone by. But A1A was the category where you had a lot of competition. And the 0 to 100 times, let's say, in comparison of a regular street Premier Padmini that you bought from what was made in Kurla, would have been, I would say, 0 to 100 in 24 seconds.
Yes, around 24, 25.
Yeah, 24, 25 seconds. These cars did 0 to 100 in 12 seconds. Now imagine the
So basically, you doubled the performance of the car.
double the performance of the car. And the things that have been done. So I remember I was getting a A1A engine built, and again, the gentleman is no more, Ramesh Nichani, one of my mentors. And didn't have so much money to do anything, and Ramesh guided me through it. He was a Bangalore boy and hung out, very good friends with Renuka's father, Chubi Lalwani also. And he kind of taught me the simple rules of it. So, for example, just to tell you that the blueprinting of an engine, those days tolerance levels, machining levels, everything, even in the car factories, it was a monopoly. Yeah, we were a closed economy. Anything you made, sold, you had bloody booking for 3355 years, right? So no one was paying attention to the quality. So all things. So what Ramesh taught me was that let's go and blueprint an engine, and your performance will improve by 10, 15, 20%. So what was the blueprinting of an engine? How did you do it? So if Sirish Chandran had a shop that supplied pistons, piston rings, connecting rods, bearings, valves, all that. I needed for a Fiat 4 of each. But I would tell Sirish, give me at least 5, 6 sets. I'll choose the best set. Now, how do you choose the best set? So, weighing scales. The most accurate weighing scales back then were either with the guys who were jewelers, weighing gold and all that and selling you the gold via the grams. Difficult to access until you had someone in the family. Or the Indian post offices. Okay. Why post offices? Because all the postal thing was on the weight of your envelope.
Okay.
So if your envelope weighed a certain weight, 5 paisa stamp on it. Then you got another 5 paisa, 2 paisa stamps also you got. If my weight increases so much, add 2 paisa, add 1 paisa. So those weighing scales were also very accurate because they weighed the envelopes and then charged you accordingly.
Okay.
And even adding a 5 paisa stamp extra on an envelope meant a lot of money at that time. So people used to stand and say, wait in front of me. Those weighing scales. So what Ramesh made me do was go to the Churchgate post office, and I have a tie-up with those guys. They shut the post office at 4 o'clock. At 4 to 5, we'd be allowed to come and use that weighing scale. All right, give the guy a little bakshish and do that. And then you open all the pistons out, and you have 25 pistons here. And you would wait, write the weight of it, separate it. So try and get each piston as close to each other in weight. Then rest, of course, you would shave off and you do it, balance them and whatever. But the tolerance levels varied so much that you could, if you pulled out the best four connecting rods, then the rings, everything, and got them to that measure, and then just sat and assembled that engine properly. It would sound sweeter, it would rev more smoothly, rev a little higher, and your chances of breaking that engine or seizing reduced tremendously because this was done with love and affection and care. So, I mean, I have great respect for Indian ingenuity because we didn't have resources at that time. We didn't have exposure to, what was being done. But we were very smart guys. We did amazing work with our engines. Exhaust tuning. I have seen people sitting with different length pipes of all sorts, trying out different exhaust manifolds. And just by changing the length by half, 11 and making extension tubes and coming in and out, the drivers had to be damn sensitive. Yeah. You didn't have all the V boxes and all that that gave you timing in microseconds, and you had basic stopwatches. Stopwatch was a big thing to get hold of at that time. Uh, but you measured it by the second. The rest was the feel of the driver, talking to his tuner. Do this, do this. And we pushed the envelope well beyond the limits of the cars. We made them very, very well. And the racing at the end of the day was very close. Yeah. And I mean, I have no hair now. I had some back then, but it would stand up. 40 cars starting at Sholavaram down the straight, and the first hairpin they would take. Those 40 cars used to be door handle to door handle. Yeah. And there was yet, by and large, very clean and good racing. Again, you see those videos. There are some phenomenal videos.
So those are the highs of Indian rallying racing. I don't think we have much time to get into the other aspects, the whole list that we have. This podcast will go on for a couple of hours. Quickly, what's the lows?
So, two lows, like I'd say, is that highs, we conceived the Himalayan, we conceived the Great Desert Himalaya. Whether it was Nazir alone or his team, it was always a team together, right? So we Indians conceived these two events that today should have been part of WRC, and the
Rally
Great
Raid
Desert
Championship.
Himalaya should have been one of the raids to rival the Paris-Dakar. Full marks for this. The low is that neither lived up to its potential. Despite the Himalayan getting such a lot of, support internationally also, support from Indian participants, support from Indian spectators, both these events eventually died. And they have not been revived, and now I don't think we can revive them. That, to me, are the big lows. The other lows. You asked a very nice question when we were talking about the politics was from within or was it from outside? The politics at these events were from outside. They were outside sources, political sources that caused the politics. Internally, we worked beautifully, jointly as a team. There may have been differences. That happens in any organization. But you worked together. To me, the low is that after that, subsequently, we saw a lot of infighting. I mean, we've had separate federations formed. Nazir formed a separate federation, broke away from, that. Down to the fact that even our classic car motorsport, which is so much more niche and it's more gentlemanly. It's laid back here. You're doing TST rallies, you're doing concourse events, you're displaying cars. So you expect a vintage and classic car guy or vintage and classic car organizer to be a breed that's slightly different from the ones who are doing competitive, hardcore. But even there are divisions. We've had several different federations formed to the extent now I don't know how many federations we have. I wonder what the guys sitting at FIA and FIWA and all are thinking. That what is this with this country that every few months, years, someone new comes up and says, I'm going to want a federation. I have support from so-and-so, I have support from. Why this divisive politics? At the end of the day, we are all petrol heads. We are all automotive people from whichever part of the country. I have friends from every part of the country involved in motorsport. But for some reason, I won't say some reason, one of the reasons is ego, for sure. Yeah. We have these huge egos, and then you want to take, what do they call? Ownership. I hate this word ownership. Why do you have to own motorsport? But so they want to take ownership of an event. They want to take ownership of an area. I will do this in this area. You can't come. And this divisiveness is a huge, huge low. It's something that has disillusioned me to the extent that now I'm not attending events going there just because of this. And then if I go to a certain event, certain part of the country, अरे तुम उस गैंग का पार्ट हो गया है, हमारा गैंग वाला नहीं है, हमारा टीम वाला नहीं है. अरे व्हाट डू यू मीन हमारा टीम वाला नहीं है यार? So there is this, unfortunately, and then before you know it, they've made up. If it's convenient for them, and you're the bad guy because you were with, seen at someone's event, or you were supporting him, or you gave him 5 ideas, do this. Yeah, we have been fortunate. We've traveled globally. We've seen international events. We have a certain exposure. Someone may not. Yeah. Recently, we both were at an event, and we've seen certain things the way they were run. We may have had 5 suggestions on how that event could have been run better. Yeah, and we have these discussions amongst ourselves so often. And if you happen to be the organizer, maybe I'll come to you and tell you, do this. But how did you tell him? Why didn't you tell me? I mean, this ego, this ownership, and it's only increasing, Sirish. Every day I see more of it happening. And the last space I thought it would happen was in our vintage and classic sport, but it's happening there. We should have had today, given the fact that the kind of classic cars we have in our country, the motoring heritage. I mean, we talked about motorsport, the highs. We have a history of over 100 years of Indian motorsport. Which China has 100 years of motorsport? Right? How many countries in the world have 100 years plus of motorsport history? We have it. Which country has apart from, the Englands and the USA's and Germany's and Italy, how many countries in the world have the kind of cars that we do? Nobody does. What have we done with all this? Fight amongst ourselves. Today you should have had in every... Pune, you come to a classic car event, you see some beautiful 40, 50, 60 cars, some of which are not going to Bangalore to participate or Lucknow to participate or Delhi or Chandigarh or wherever. Because that guy who has his car is all right maintaining it, spending money on it with such a lot of difficulty, and through his own resources keeping it running on the road and participating for him in Pune is a high. But if tomorrow you ran a championship, you had enough prize money, you had enough incentive to say, I will provide you free transport and stay. Come, bring your car, display it at, show it to us at bloody in Assam, show it to us in Guwahati, show it to us here. You could bring this whole national movement together. The potential is huge.
And then you not just have your motorsport challenges, but you also have the general challenges of the automotive industry. Stuff like you can't use cars that are more than 10 years old in Delhi. And that actually, I'll stop you there because I know it's there. You want to explode about it. But I think that can be the topic of our next podcast. We've talked about what ails Indian motorsport. In the next week or the week after that, let's talk about what ails the automotive industry in general. The 10-year-old rule, the ethanol rule, the sub-4 meter rule, the forcing down of EVs by the government. I think we'll just pick on maybe 5-10 topics. And the next topic of our podcast with Bob Rupani here can be about the challenges of the Indian automotive industry
and Indian consumer.
And the Indian consumer.
Who's always taken for granted.
Yeah, aren't we? Yeah. Especially because the automotive industry is everybody's favorite whipping boy. Because that's something that's very obvious. It can be seen. So you're not going after the construction dust, which is actually causing the pollution, but you're going after cars which meet BS6, BS 6.2 emission norms. But no, you're going after those cars. Whereas you're not going to the root problem of all the pollution in our cities. Garbage burning and all of that. But I think that can be the topic of our next podcast, Bob.
Absolutely. And before we end here, I'd just like to say one thing. For example, Formula One. We ran it 3 years. We built a track that every driver loved, every team loved.
Yes.
Yeah, which I actually was very skeptical about when the track was. I think a lot of us were on tenterhooks at the first race. That how will it run?
Yep.
And you came out, I mean, shining. Yeah.
MotoGP. All the riders, okay, it was sweltering hot, but all the riders loved the layout of the track.
What are we doing with it? Yeah. I mean, again, I'll take 2 minutes. 1980s, Himalayan Rally was on national television every day during when it was being run. Sholavaram, live telecast. I mean, Doordarshan doing a whole day live telecast.
In the 80s.
In the 80s, yeah. Today, we are in the sport, but very often I don't know where an INRC rally is running in a country. Yeah, I don't know what is happening very often, despite so much social media. Despite what have we done? I mean, we had such a beautiful base to build on, but somewhere it's got lost. And tragedy is like 3 years of Formula One track sitting there, and what are we doing? So somewhere we need to wake our authorities up also, because they have let us down also in a big way.
Okay. On that note, Bob, thank you for being on the Evo India podcast. Always a pleasure to listen to you. And I hope you guys enjoyed all these insights. Now, this is obviously going back to the 80s, where a lot of us, we were in short pants. Maybe a lot of us weren't even, like Atish wasn't even born back then. You said your first rally that you went to see was 77. I wasn't even born back then. But those who don't look at the past are destined to repeat the same problems in the future, right? So you have to know what transpired so that you can address it, course correct, and obviously introspect. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for the insights. Thank you for listening and watching the podcast. And we'll be back with Bob very soon to talk about what ails the Indian automotive industry and the automotive consumer. Thank you once again.